Okay, I'm only going to do one example, and maybe we'll work on more from classes. And what I mean by one example is one example of word problems. Now this section is all about slope-intercept. And in order to understand slope-intercept, we need to think of this as a little bit different. So let's actually rewrite slope-intercept over here to the right. And instead of talking about the terms y-intercept and slope, let's think of the y-intercept as being the starting point. So let's put the word y-intercept and then start there. And the reason I say that is because 0 is what we would plug in for x, and we'd be left with whatever y is. So it's basically wherever you begin, because this term starts off like time equals 0, or your beginning point. And the other thing I'll mention is slope is the rate of change, right? So here's slope. And that says rate of change. Sorry about my handwriting there. Okay, now this means like, if I were to make 30 bucks an hour, if I were to drive and get 30 miles per gallon. Those are the rates that I'm talking about. So we'll write an equation for the profit P made on S sandwiches. That's the first part. We're going to have to graph it. Then we're going to have to find the total profit. So the band boosters are selling sub sandwiches for $5 each. And if I want to think about it that way, well, let's just list what we know so far. So it's $5 per, so there's my slash, sub. The cost of the ingredients to make the sandwiches was $1,160. And what we're told to figure out is an equation for profit. Now we need to figure out, first of all, am I earning money in this situation? You're absolutely earning money. Because every time you sell a sub, which is going to be represented by the letter S, you're going to make another $5. So here, our variable is S, and our profit is P, written with a capital P because that's how they chose it. And since it's $5 a sub, my rate of change will be positive. So $5 for every sub. If I sell 0 subs, I have earned $0 so far. If I sell 1 sub, it's 5 times 1 gives me 5. 2 times 5 gives me 10, and so on. But the other number they give us is 1,160. So if we hadn't sold anything at this point yet, how much money have we earned? Well, we've earned nothing. And not only earned nothing, we've actually spent. So we would have to take away 1,160. Now in an equation, notice that I'm steering away from this. So let's think about why this works out. If I plug in 0, this term goes away, and that means my profit would be negative $1,160. That means I owe people money. But slowly, as I start to sell 1 sub at a time, it's like now I have 5, and I'm taking away this number, which leaves me with 1155. I sell 2, that means that I'm taking away 1160 from 10, so it's like I'm slowly climbing up and chipping away at my debt and increasing my profit. So here's the equation. We are done in this step. That's all they asked us to do. And maybe you'd like to see the negative 1160 out front because you think of that as beginning, but it's just not the way these are written. So because it's not the way they're written, that's why I show it in this order. 2. Graph the equation. Now hopefully you have room, I think you do, but we're not really interested in negative subs, so I'm not going to show anything to the left there. But I am interested in negative money. So here I am writing subs, as well as P for profit. And here's where, like, as far as budgeting your space, it actually is kind of nice to kind of figure this out a bit ahead of time so that you can plan your graph. Well, I do know that it will be nice for me to go down at least to negative 1,000. And I know that I haven't even met that number. I'm just saying that because negative 1500 might leave a lot of open space. So I'm choosing negative 1000, knowing that I'm either going to write it a little bit lower or whatever. But, if I'm told, I need to sell 1,400 sandwiches, well, I guess in that case, here's me going all the way to 1,500 with 500 and 1,000. So it'd be nice to figure out the other boundary. Well, I know it's going to be 5 times something minus 1160. And since they're telling me to figure it out for 1,400, I'm rolling out my calculator and I'm doing 5 times 1,400 minus 1160. And that gives me 5,840. So there's 5,840. That means that my profit needs to go to 10,000, I guess. Now, in this problem, I'm going to talk about something at the end. So here's 10,000. Here's negative 10,000. So this one demanded that I go that low for the other. And as far as accuracy goes, here's 0, negative 1160. It should be pretty darn close to that axis. And then here's 1,400, 5,840. So as I'm graphing these 2 points, this is going to serve our purposes for today. Now, if they wanted us to figure out when do you start making profit, so what's the minimum number of subs to start making profit, that's a different sort of problem. And these large regions of the graph, they wouldn't expect you to be so accurate that you could actually figure it out from your graph. So what we would do for that one is, well, we'd have to think about the problem. Well, here, do we know what the x value is? No, we don't. We know that we've gone over some distance, but unless I've graphed it perfectly, I'm not going to figure out. But we do know that the y value would be 0, because that's when the profit would be 0. That's your breaking even point, where you would go from having negative profit to a positive profit. So were we to do this problem, we would write p equals 5s minus 1160, and then we'd figure out when the profit would be 0, and that would give us the crossover point. And if we did want to figure this out, we would just solve the equation, and you figure out, okay, well, there's 232 subs would get us there. So hopefully this word problem felt smooth enough. We'll get more of them, and they might not have the same look. Tons of practice on this. You want this slope-intercept stuff to be muscle memory. And also, as you're doing these problems in your notes, you know that I want to see neat x and y axes, where you budget your space and go according to a good plan, so that we can clearly see where x and y intercepts are for 99% of these problems.